Our darshan this morning, Ethan Samuels, grew up here at Adat Ariel in our congregation. And from the time that I have known Ethan, he's always shown great intensity, tremendous focus, insight, intelligence, and a wonderful self-reflective quality. He also serves now in our armed forces, and it's a pleasure to be able to share the bima with him this morning.
And it's also quite interesting that today the rabbi's remarks dealt with the idea of investing a man in a uniform, and that the idea of that uniform bringing honor to the man. But as we were taught in the United States Navy, so as the uniform may bring honor and respect to the man, it is incumbent upon the man to bring at least as much, if not more, respect to said uniform. So in that regard, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. It is a true honor to be standing here today in front of this venerable congregation, which for me is the first time in almost 14 years. And today I wish to discuss with all of you how the Bible that we've been reading today, and that we read every single week, and that we're required to be studying every single day, actually spells out the Okay. Can you hear me a little bit more easily now? Sorry.
Okay.
Thanks.
Keep going. Just keep going.
All right, thanks. Cool. I want to discuss with you today how in the Bible, the foundation for what we call Sea Power 21, which is the operating doctrine of the United States Navy for the 21st century, which enables the United States Navy to be a global force for peace, actually can trace its origin specifically back to the Torah. Before I go any further in elaborating this, I wish to caveat that the opinions expressed in this Devar Torah are mine alone, and they do not reflect those of the United States Navy, any branch of the armed forces, or any subordinate command which I may have ever been affiliated with. Nor is this mentioned to be any type of political statement, nor will I be disclosing any classified material. For those of you who are expecting otherwise, I apologize. However, I will touch on some rather loaded subjects, and I strongly encourage audience participation, provided that anybody with a question or a viewpoint, please raise their hands before expressing said question or viewpoint. This being said, in Devarim, chapter 20, verse 10, it states, Ki tikrav el ir lilachem aleha v'karata aleha l'shalom. When you approach a city to wage war upon it, you must first call out for peace, thus giving the aforementioned city or nation the opportunity to surrender, and thus to avoid bloodshed altogether. This is an example of what we call today strategic deterrence, which is one of the primary missions of the United States Navy, which is to maintain, train, and equip combat-ready naval forces capable of winning wars, deterring aggression, and maintaining freedom of the seas. Mentioned in there is the deterrence of aggression. Well, how do you deter aggression? To answer this question, we turn actually to the great ancient Chinese philosopher Sun Tzu, author of The Art of War, which is thought to be the definitive treatise on waging and winning a war. In it, Sun Tzu states, quote, "A good general only fights battles he knows he can win. A great general only fights battles that he's already won." Now, how do you win a battle before you fight it? Well, before I get to that, it was actually this precept that, when adopted by General William H. Donovan, ultimately led to the passage of the National Security Act of 1947, which, among other things, established the CIA and the United States Air Force. General Donovan realized that to win a war before it is fought, one must understand all variables that may have any effect on the outcome of the war, to the point of being able to manipulate and even to dominate them. And it is in this light that actually Vice Admiral Dorsett in 2010 integrated the profession of Navy intelligence with meteorology, the JAG Corps, radio theory, and communications in order to establish the Information Dominance Warfare Corps. He understood that these variables that may have an effect on the outcome of a war include intelligence, weather, communications, capabilities and training of ourselves and our enemies, and even the rules of engagement as understood by ourselves and our enemies. Understanding these variables, we can effectively determine the outcome of any military operation before we even start to conduct it. And although General Donovan was the proponent of this idea in the United States, one need only look to the Torah for its origin. In fact, in the book of Numbers, God instructs Moshe Rabbeinu to send spies into the land of Canaan. In Parashat Shlach Lecha, Bamidbar, chapter 13, verse 17, it states, when Moses sent them to scout the land of Canaan, he said to them, go up there into the Negev and on into the hill country and see what kind of country it is. Are the people who dwell in it strong or weak, few or many? Is the country in which they dwell good or bad? Are the towns they live in open or fortified? Is the soil rich or poor? Is it wooded or is it not? And take pains to bring back some of the fruit of their land. Now this happened to be in the season of the first ripe grape. As a child, this section always kind of baffled me. If the children of Israel have God on their side, God who brought them out of Egypt and it just defeated the mightiest army in the world at the time, without even breaking a sweat in their corner, then what possible difference would any of this information make? Why would Moses waste our time and manpower to find out all this information? The answer is that God was trying to teach the children of Israel how to conduct what is in my line of work known as JIPO, short for Joint Intelligence Preparation of the Operating Environment. God was instructing the children of Israel on the importance of knowing and understanding every variable that may have any bearing on the outcome of a war. And by being able to understand and manipulate these variables, God's intention was to acclimate the children of Israel to taking steps to ensure the victory of any war they fought before they stepped onto the battlefield. However, as we know from that same parashat, the undoing of this teaching and this whole process was fear. And that is actually just as true today as it was back then. When the spies returned from the land of Canaan, they brought back messages of fear, which weakened the resolve of the children of Israel so much so that they actually expressed a wish to die in Egypt rather than to risk death in wars of conquest. The unwillingness to commit in battle undoes any attempt to win the battle, whether you fight it or not. It was this fear that indicated to God and Moshe Rabbeinu that the children of Israel could not be taught to win wars on their own before they are fought. In subsequent texts, in Devarim, in the same portion as the Kriya L'Shalom is first mentioned, in chapter 20, verse 8, it states that before every large mobilization, officials shall address the troops and say, Mi ha'ish hayareh ve'rach halevav yelech ve'yashov lebeto ve'lo yumas et levav echav kilvavo. Is there anyone afraid and disheartened? Let him go back to his home, lest the courage of his comrades flag like his. Here God hammers home the point that resolve is one of the most important variables that can affect the outcome of any battle before and during the fighting of said battle. For this reason, there must be no doubts regarding the resolve of the Israelites. And we've seen historical examples of the flagging of resolve being the undoing of a military campaign. During World War II, the Japanese Navy had the United States Navy on the run in the wake of Pearl Harbor, and yet the United States naval victories in Guadalcanal and the Battle of the Coral Sea and other countless famous skirmishes drove back the Japanese conquest of the Pacific and helped turn the tide of World War II. Why? Because the Japanese showed too much fear and too much timidity. In the Japanese imperial naval culture, a commander who made a tactical error would typically commit suicide for having disgraced himself. This led to a refusal to take risks, specifically with the Japanese aircraft carriers. Our commanders, Admiral Nimitz, Admiral Halsey, and Admiral John Sidney McCain, grandfather of the now sitting Senator John McCain, by contrast, were willing to experiment with a carrier-based sea defense that had never been tried before in human history, and thus took enormous gambles that ultimately would pay off. And they realized that a jealously guarded weapon like the Japanese aircraft carriers is no weapon at all. Their sheer boldness, ability to improvise and to adapt, which stems from a lack of flagging resolve, gave the United States the upper hand. The Japanese Navy, like the children of Israel, however, was defeated first and foremost by the flagging of its resolve and the presence of fear. The United States Navy, by contrast, emerged with the ability to project offensive combat forces anywhere in the world. And now, with Sea Power 21, whenever China or North Korea or even Iran, as we see right now with the USS Carl Vinson, starts making some audacious maritime claim that could affect regional stability, the United States Navy is always on the job, able to send a carrier strike group to operate off the coast of whatever country is causing the ruckus. By projecting the threat and the capability of offensive naval striking power, which is only possible because our Navy has the largest peacetime joint intelligence preparation of the operating environment anywhere in the world. The United States Navy can attain control of all variables which can affect the outcome of any skirmish and thus can fulfill the command of Kriya l'Shalom. Aggressor nations, to their credit, have, for the most part, quickly acquiesced to this call for peace. And in this way, the United States Navy can act as a global force for peace in accordance with the spirit of the commands given by God in the book of Deuteronomy. As my grandfather, Rabbi Morton Wallach, the senior-most military officer in my family, Captain, United States Air Force, retired, used to always say to close his sermons, "May it be God's will, and Shabbat Shalom."